Hello, my name is Master Sergeant Leroy Foster, and it is June 6th, 2017, and this interview is going to be held by my wife, Ruth Ann Bentley Foster, and a fellow veteran that was on Guam, a Marine Sergeant Brian Moyer, and both of them have been affected by the Agent Orange dioxin contamination during the Vietnam War. And my wife, Ruth Ann, is going to ask the questions that you wanted me to answer. And I'm going to show her to you right now. There she is. That's my wife, Ruth Ann Bentley Foster. And this is my friend and fellow veteran of the Vietnam War, Brian Moyer.
Hey, how we doing?
And he was also affected by Agent Orange. He has unexplained illnesses that nobody in his family has had and that he suffers from. And he didn't know about the Agent Orange that I sprayed on Guam for 10 years during the Vietnam War. So we're going to begin this interview, and the place that the interview is being taken place is 2725 South Lincoln Avenue in Lakeland, Florida, zip code 33803, and the congressional representative for this area is Dennis Ross, and the governor of Florida, as you know, is Rick Scott. And so we're going to begin the questions. Okay, Ruth Ann, you can ask the first question.
Well, what illness do you suffer from?
I suffer from 33 autoimmune diseases. I've been diagnosed with 33. The most severe being ischemic heart disease and four cancers: colon cancer, rectal cancer, thyroid cancer, and probably bladder, prostate cancer, and I also suffer from ischemic heart disease and several spinal diseases, ankylosing spondylosis, sciatica, spinal stenosis, degenerative joint and disc disease, osteoporosis and osteoarthritis, and psoriatic arthritis and psoriasis. And I also have tinnitus, and I also have cataracts that are all associated with the Agent Orange exposure, and I have peripheral neuropathy in all of my limbs. And it was all from handling Agent Orange herbicides for 10 years for the U.S. Air Force on the island of Guam at Anderson Air Force Base and off base, starting in September 1968 through June of 1978. And so we're going to go to the next question now.
So describe the first time you experienced symptoms. What was going on in your life at the time the illness presented itself?
The first time that I experienced the illnesses was in October 1968, and I developed, at that time the Air Force called it acne, but we've since found out it was actually chloracne, and that was one of the first symptoms that someone would have that handled Agent Orange. They would have chloracne, which is breaking out on my body, which included my chest, my torso, buttocks, upper thighs, my upper arms, my face, my neck, my ears, behind my ears, and I would have boils, cysts, and lesions. And that began 2 weeks after I began handling Agent Orange herbicides on Guam, and I was diagnosed with a chloracne at the U.S. Air Force Clinic on Anderson Air Force Base, and it's in the medical records, my military medical records. And the Air Force actually made me pay for my barrack sheets because I bled all over my sheets because of the open boils and open lesions and cysts, and I ruined my barrack sheets. So they did payroll deductions on me and made me pay for the sheets that I would ruin because of my military duties handling Agent Orange. And I also developed sciatica in 1969, and I didn't know it was connected, didn't know sciatica was an autoimmune disease. And it's a progressive autoimmune disease that goes into ankylosing spondylosis and spinal stenosis and degenerative joint and disc disease, and which affects my entire spine from C1 down through the lumbar and the sciatic joints, S1, S2. And so I'm afflicted where they want to do surgery, but I won't let them touch me because there's other veterans that told me don't let the VA touch me because they had the same thing I have, but they allowed the VA to operate on them, and now they're paralyzed. And they're the president and past president of Paralyzed Veterans of America, the PVA. So I won't let them touch me. Okay, so we're going to go to the next question.
What types of treatments have you received?
The treatments that I've received over the years, the Air Force had me using Fostex soap, and they would give me a steroid, which was I can't remember the name of it, but it's a general steroid. Begins with a P. Do you know what that is, Brian? The steroid that they used to give us for...
Sorcon?
No, it begins with a P. It's like PS.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
I think so. There was a steroid, an ointment that was used.
My daughter, we even went on these steroids, but I found out later the steroids could even make it worse. But the Air Force didn't acknowledge.
Did it bleach your skin out if you put it in the wrong spot?
No, it wasn't a cream. It was pills.
Okay, because what I had was
a cream.
And if you put it in the wrong spot.
I did go to that type of a treatment at Charleston Air Force Base. I went and saw a skin specialist at the Charleston Naval Base Hospital in South Carolina, and they had me putting on 3 or 4 different types of ointments around the blisters, boils, and cysts, because they told me it was a different type of infection on the head of the boil than around it. It was a different inflammation, so they were actually having me putting on 2 or 3 different types of... But they did end up getting some of it cleared up, but I still suffer today from boils and cysts that will come on me in different parts of my body, normally my chest and my buttocks area and my thighs, my inside of my upper legs, but I still get them. So we're going to go to the next question.
How do you manage your illness? How has your treatment impacted you financially? Have you tried any alternative treatments?
You want to go back to the question again?
Yeah, go back. Repeat the question for me.
How do you manage your illness? How has your treatment impacted you financially? Have you tried any alternative treatments?
I have a difficult time managing my illnesses. I had people telling me I was making up my diseases to the point of faking. They said I was faking heart attacks, and I actually had 54 heart attacks and 2 strokes. And the gentleman that did that, his name was John McGee, and he was my supervisor at DFAS Columbus. That's Defense Finance and Accounting Service, Columbus, Ohio. And he said I was making up these heart attacks that I was suffering from, and they were making me stay at work until I did my 8 hours of work, and I couldn't leave until after I finished the 8 hours. And some mornings it would take me a long time to get there because I was a single parent raising a 3-year-old, my 3-year-old daughter, and I would get to work after dropping her off at school, and I would get to work, and I've had heart attacks all night long, which I would try to treat myself by laying cold towels across my whole body because my body was so inflamed and hot from the heart attacks. And I would get myself dressed and get her to school, and then it was preschool, and then go to work. And I would get there sometimes 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, and I had to stay there and work 8 hours, and I would have heart attacks during my work hours. And there were days where I actually had to push myself out of my work on a secretary's chair with wheels and lay my upper body on the chair, and I crawled out of the building with my